Megaherzzz. You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ.
You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ. I'm Sarah and my pronouns are they, them, and I am in the studio with the wonderful Denise.
And my pronouns are she, her.
And I actually didn't realise that the term bluestocking was a derogative. It was supposed to be a derogative.
Well, it was. If you wanted to study it and get an education, you were a bluestocking.
How dare you?
I know.
How dare you?
Dare you as a woman
derogatory
want to be
term
educated.
For an educated, intellectual woman who may or may not have been part of a literary society. And, they used to have bluestocking meetings, but I don't know, that sounds like a good thing to me. But yeah, how dare you? How dare you get educated and join a book club?
Exactly.
Or we'll throw nasty words at you like blue stockings.
Oh, I'm injured.
Well, you're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ, and Megaherzzz is the weekly feminism and feminist and women's news and social justice here on the Zs. And before we go any further, as always, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're broadcasting from here. This is the land of the Turrbal and the Yagara people, and just like to acknowledge the communication and fabulous ways of connection that the Turrbal and the Yagara people have had and continue to have on these lands. And of course, from Megaherzzz, also like to pay particular respects to the aunties and the matriarchs out there. If you're listening, we stand in solidarity with you. Now, we've come to the time in our show, we do every week we've made a promise to keep men's violence and femicide on the agenda, and we are talking about that every week. We do understand that this is a very devastating topic for a lot of people and a very personal topic. So we do urge you to take self-care and practice your right to disconnect if you need to. Just for the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about that, and in particular we're going to be talking about anger today, because Denise, you attended a online conferencey
an online
forum thing this week.
I did indeed.
Tell us, what was that? What was that about?
So the forum was actually about philosophy and the psychology of anger. And as you know, Sarah, I practice Stoicism, so that's how I came across this particular forum. And of course, anger, well, I believe there's an epidemic of anger in the world, and so it's sort of top of mind, and I thought I would attend it. The challenge was it was from 2 a.m. to 6:30 in the morning on Sunday morning. So I survived till 5 a.m., but I have gone back and looked at some of the recording. It is up on YouTube if anyone's interested. It is 5 hours of viewing though. But
so I'm guessing this was an international forum. They didn't just set it at 5 in the morning, or
no,
just because I thought people will be more docile at that time of day.
No, it's it comes out of some of the Stoicism are in the UK and the USA. So obviously we tend to miss out in terms of the time zones, which is why I've set up my own group to put some of this stuff on for our particular time zone. So they're often at overnight because of the our round world. And so it was very interesting because there's various thoughts in the philosophy field around anger, but also it was very interesting on the psychology side. There was quite a number of psychologists and research people there, and the thing that fascinated me was that even though there are treatments for anger, it's not, people don't front up to a psychologist or a counsellor and go, I need help with my anger, people front up with I've got anxiety, or I'm depressed, or I'm whatever. And so there's not a lot of real research, I guess, if you like, in terms of this anger space, in terms of gathering data and looking at what does work and what doesn't work. So, for example, obviously it happens here in Australia as well, but if you're court appointed to go to anger management courses because of whatever you've done, there's, again, still not a lot of research out of that, whether that's actually been beneficial for someone, that it's actually improved their behaviour by going to these anger management courses. And so I just found that really fascinating, that there still needs to be a lot of work around this in terms of being able to help people navigate their own anger, but also someone else's anger. So, for example, my marriage broke up because my former husband became very verbally abusive, not so much physically abusive, but it sort of spewed over myself and my son. And even though I hung in there trying to suggest that he get help, I now discover that if me suggesting him getting help was sort of saying that, that putting him in the enemy line. And so I've always been fascinated with this because of that anger that he came about. And actually out of this forum, I discovered that his anger was a control anger. And I know that it came about because of his uncertainty in the world, and he didn't know how to deal with that. Now, the thing that angered me was that he wouldn't go and seek help for that. So what happens when people have control anger is that it does come out as verbal abuse. So, you might be working, someone slams the table, calls people all sorts of, inappropriate. It's more than likely that they are feeling uncertain and that there's a control aspect to what they're trying to do with their behaviour. Whereas the aggressive behaviour really comes about a sort of a superior view of your self-esteem and often revenge. You want to lash out aggressively because someone's affronted you, and often I think this is where it's very appropriate for men, because it's sort of in some ways society expects them to be aggressive.
I feel like that's also control anger though as well. Like both of those situations, they are different actions, different ways to use violence, but it is still seems to be about control. But it seems like the difference is one is pre-control, trying to control the situation before it happens, and the other is like post-control, trying to control the situation after it's happened. So protecting the reputation, protecting, it's damage control. So I don't know, it all sounds like control to me.
Well,
I wish I was at this forum and I could ask the questions.
Well, that's the thing. There were lots of speakers and lots of different, and a lot of it is like the gentleman that I was really taken with, who's done quite a lot of research in this. He was saying that in terms of cognitive behavioural therapy, a lot more with anger needs to be on the behaviour part, that it's actually you need to practice particular behavioural aspects to control that anger. And certainly that's what I think was the tie-in with the philosophy, because what I've learnt through practicing Stoicism is that it is a lot about observing your own behaviour and finding ways, either through meditation or journaling or whatever, to look at how you can manage that, but also how you can become the better person that you are, and that you're putting that out into the world. One of the other gentlemen who is actually in the therapy area, he talked about the cost-benefit analysis. He said what he's discovered is that people that come in with anger often underestimate the impact of their anger, and they underestimate what the impact is on their relationships. They sort of downplay it a bit. And so there's a lot of work in trying to get them to see that, the long-term implications of that. And I think we mentioned that the domestic violence person that we had last year said exactly that.
The interview we did with the rep from DV Connect.
Yes.
Yeah.
That they're doing a lot of work in this anger space to try and
again they said that people don't front up with they don't call the line to say, hey, I've got an anger issue or I've got a violence issue. They call to say I'm being mistreated a lot of the time, and then breaking it down. They're like, okay, well, what's your part in this? Very, very tactfully and gently, I'm sure, but it comes out that a lot of it is that they have contributing use of violence as well a lot of the time. So really, I think I'm looking forward to there'll be more forums out of this. They've actually said that the next ones will be a little bit more in depth rather than having so many speakers, but it was good because it was sort of connecting the ancient, which is the ancient philosophies, with the modern psychology, and seeing how we can navigate this, because it's so important. It's so important because, as we know, with what we talk about every week, men's violence is out of that anger space, out of that aggression space. So we need to find a solution for this. Now, and you did mention before that they did say something about release of anger, and and talking about and this is off air in our discussion. You were talking about about having the anger, and then that the release of anger is not necessarily, this is often we say, okay, you've got aggression, so you need an outlet for that. But they mentioned that. Can you tell us what you spoke about?
Well,
with that?
This researcher was saying that in actual fact, what happens is with that, if you take up sort of boxing or any sort of violent, it can escalate it. It's not it doesn't soothe you. If anything, you need to be doing relaxation and meditation, what I've been talking about, doing journaling. So more passive sort of stuff rather than increasing the arousal of it. So even, thoughts of revenge can escalate and can be positively reinforcing in terms of heightening that arousal. So the big reinforcers that he said are sex, drugs, rock and roll, and revenge.
It sounds fantastic. sounds like Taylor Swift.
Well, they're the ones that, when you think about it, they're the ones that get you the dopamine hit that, sort of can either make you... but anyway, it can escalate your aggression. A couple of other things, they haven't done a lot of research on the people that feel aggressive or get angry and then take it out on a stranger. So, like the one punch hit, those sorts of incidences where people feel they're entitled to just take it out on, or stand there and abuse somebody that they don't even know because they're angry. So there's not been a lot of research in that sort of area as well. So it's just huge, a huge area of study that needs further work, really. But fascinating.
Yeah.
So do you want 5 hours of viewing?
Look, we'll have to put that up in the show notes as well. Yes. On our Facebook, put up the link to that for people who would like to see or listen to the full thing. And maybe I think I might do a little Sarah and Denise interview. I might have to ask you some more about Stoicism. I think that's a fascinating topic, and you're the first person that I've met that is a practicing Stoic, or at least that has come out to me as such. And I think it's a fascinating topic, so I'm going to ask you a bit more about that.
Paradigm Shifts podcast is available online and via your favorite podcasting app, challenging the assumptions of our current society to investigate alternative ways of living for a world based on justice, solidarity, and sustainability. Tune in to the Paradigm Shift podcast. Just search The Paradigm Shift for Triple Z.
You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ, and we were talking about anger before our break, but I said I would come back and ask Denise a few questions about Stoicism because, it's not something that you hear about a lot, Stoicism, and I think it gets a bad rap because, the word Stoic, people think it means grin and bear it.
Stiff upper lip.
Yep. Keep a stiff upper lip and grin and bear it. Don't ask, don't tell, all of that kind of stuff. And just get on with it. So, am I wrong, Denise?
You are wrong.
I'm wrong.
So Stoicism with a capital S comes out of it's an ancient, it's pre-Christianity, so Greek and Roman, and there were a number of a lot of the texts have been lost, but Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius are some of the ancient texts that we sort of read in terms of what they believed about. And I guess the three things that I keep in mind with Stoicism is that we have very little control over what happens in life. The only three things we have control over are our actions and reactions to what happens to us, our moral character, and taking care of ourselves and those that are close to us, near and dear to us. They're the only three things that we really have direct influence of. The rest of it, is what happens in life and so on. So it takes that whole uncertainty, if you like. And I came to Stoicism because I was having chronic anxiety to the point of panic attacks. And I heard a radio program about a lady called Bridget Delaney. She's here in Australia. And it was about how not to worry the Stoic way. And I thought, I need that.
And you went, I need to suck it up and grin and bear it. That sounds good. And it was not like that?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't like that at all. It was more that, looking at, just remembering that I don't have control over the weather. I don't have control over my body. I don't have how I'm going to age. Any of those sorts of things are not in my control at all. What is in my control is taking care of myself, eating well, exercising, all those sorts of things. I can do all that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to age well or that I don't catch long COVID, which I've got. Any of those sorts of things, I don't have control over it. But also on the other side, it's about having a good life. It's eudaimonia, they talk about the good life. And this is built around a virtues-based view. That's the moral character stuff. So they have 4 virtues that which are wisdom, courage, temperance, and I can't think of the fourth one. But so basically, you use those virtues to improve your character and situations and how you behave. So leading into what we're talking about, anger, again, that's how we look at what we can do in that situation to be taking care of the people that are with us, the words that we use, what we're thinking, our actions. It's all very tied together, and I really like it because it's very grounding and very. I want to be the best person I can, and I want to, be involved in community and service and all those sorts of things. And when you're around a lot of people who you don't have control over their behaviours, the only thing you have control over is yours. And so that's the lovely thing.
We had a couple of texts in from our last discussion, and CJ did text in about our anger discussion and said that they heard the term practicing anger or rehearsing anger, and we get better at the things we practice. So for some, practicing anger makes it stronger. And I think that makes so much sense that, the more you do something, the more of a habit it becomes, and the more it becomes your go-to when you're out of control. So that makes so much so much sense. And Kate texted in and said about the conference, or the forum, that it sounds like online psychology, not philosophy. Can you explain the relevance to philosophy?
Well,
I think we're actually having that discussion
we're
now.
having that discussion now.
So how does this relate specifically to philosophy and anger relate to philosophy?
Well, it's interesting because there's lots of characters in ancient texts that are great metaphors for anger. So, for example, Helena was someone who wanted revenge. So there's lots of, so that's where the tie-in was the fact that there's all these different characters in the ancient text that relates to the psychology of and in actual fact Stoicism. Cognitive behavioural therapy came out of Stoicism. So again, that was the sort of the tie-in. And one of the references they were talking about, they were saying that these metaphors from the ancient text are a fabulous way for us to understand the different types of anger, because we like metaphors, we like stories, we like characters. Look, I'm not really into the ancient texts. I might after this forum, sort of look at it in more detail. But that was the connection why it was called philosophy and the psychology of anger was sort of tying those two ancient and modern things together, and what we can learn from both, really.
All right. So Stoicism, though, is alive and well, and people are practicing it now.
It's sort of since the 1990s, I think. There's a lot about sort of virtues stuff, even the positive psychology. Martin Seligman, I don't know if you've read any of Martin Seligman. He's the psychology used to be about the negative side. He brought in positive psychology, and he's got a website. It's called the VIA Institute, where you can go and look at your signature strengths, which are built around. They've got 6 virtues, not 4, that the Stoicism have got, and that's, I guess, to know yourself better, what your strengths are and what you like. What sort of elevates you to live a good life is around those virtues. And I did remember the 4th virtue, which is justice. I don't know how I forgot that, because I'm driven by social justice. But so justice is the other. So it's courage, temperance, wisdom, and justice are the 4 virtues.
And can you tell us temperance? What does that mean in a practice?
It's sort of moderation.
Okay.
Temperance is so that I guess not becoming an alcoholic. It's a self-control thing. It's about moderation. All things in we know that it's a balance, isn't it? You abuse something, it comes back and bites you on the bottom. So that's what the temperance or moderation, self-control is about in Stoicism.
Okay. So, well, thank you. And thank you for doing an impromptu interview on Stoicism. And we'll put up some links on our Facebook as well.
There's a website, Modern Stoicism, which is where I found most of my stuff. Once a year they run a thing called Stoic Week in October. I've done that a couple of times. That's pretty, if you're wanting to find out about Stoicism. But just go to that website. I'll put it up on our Facebook pages as well.
All right. And we are doing our Feminism Around the World segment. So we're up to the letter F. Where are we going today, Denise?
Well, we decided that we'd go to France and have a look at what's happening in terms of feminism and women's issues in France. And, yes, in terms of gender equality in the workplace, they're doing very well. They've got an overall score of 84 out of 100, which is pretty amazing. 4 points, 20 out of 20 for equal pay increases between genders. Perfect score, 15 for equal promotion rates. And this is the one I like, 15 out of 15 points for salary increases upon return from maternity leave. I don't know that happens in Australia because it's a funny thing in terms of how we view paternity leave and especially maternity leave in Australia. But France seems to be doing well in that area. They're still saying that women are doing most of the domestic responsibilities. That persists, I'm sure, around the world. In terms of domestic violence, again, it's still, obviously, better than some of the like African countries and some of those, even some of the stuff we looked at in terms of Ecuador. But there is still a high level of domestic violence in France and femicide. And that was sort of highlighted with what's called the Marzen mass rape trial, which was last year.
Maybe give just a bit of a warning for our discussion here.
Yes.
So,
basically that's where the husband was systematically drugging and having parties with strangers to rape his sedated wife for nearly a decade in the village of Marzen in France. So there has been, the government has looked at new initiatives to try and look at this particular area. What they're looking at is increasing the number of hospitals that you can go and report sexual and violence, expanding it from 236 hospitals to 377 by the end of 2025. So again, having a safe space where women can go and report that they've experienced sexual violence. And we were talking about it because I don't know that hospitals are a big thing in Australia in terms of that.
Official reporting, I couldn't find anything on reporting officially to hospitals as an avenue. No, the only places that I could find were to the police and anonymously to the police. You can report as well. I found some research on alternative reporting, but it had a few things. Saro and Sarah and the as in terms of alternative reporting and the feedback in the report. I've got a report from the Australian Institute of Criminology said that the people who reported to those felt that it was very disheartening because the report doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't do anything or achieve anything. It just sits there and it's like statistics gathering. So I am feeling that the end of this report said we really need to do something. We need alternative reporting, and we don't have it.
So, and it's similar in France, in that the French government have increased the financial support for victims of violence as well. But again, the women's groups are saying it's nowhere near enough in terms of the amount of the issue that's happening. So they're a step forward, but again, it's a long way from ensuring that women are safe in France, and they do have similar statistics of women femicide. So I think 110,000 victims of sexual violence in 2023, with 85% of the victims being women. So
okay, that's huge.
Yeah. So it's seems to be a an issue around the world and sort of ties in with our segment that we're talking about anger and our issue of men's violence in Australia. I guess I was really chuffed to see some of the gender equality in the workplace, because I do think that over time, as we see more women and respect women for their roles, it does hopefully my hope is that it will change things in the way that men view us. I think that's the challenge, is that out of the Industrial Revolution, men went to work and earned money, and so money was put around roles, and our roles were always seen as they were free, so there was no value to them, and so they've been a lesser, if you like, in our mind, with the capitalist view of work and success, and there has to be some sort of monetary aspect, and I think that's why women's roles are demeaned and why we're demeaned out of that. That's my theory anyway.
I think that's a pretty solid theory. I think, if blame anything, blame capitalism.
I'm not blaming capitalism. Well, I'm blaming that the power shift. But look, it's 2,000 years, and I'll refer back to Stoicism. I get frustrated because in Stoicism it was a very definite role thing, that men had the public views and women had the domestic, and were actually silenced. They weren't educated, all of that sort of stuff. So there were problems in that era as well. So it's 2,000 years where we've, that role, that setting of that, and I go back to it, this binary view of the world, that we've got two genders and each one's got their role, and you got to stuck in it and you got to stay in your lane, don't move out of it. That's where the tension comes in, I believe, as well. It's not only capitalism, but
not only capitalism, but
but I do think the monetary thing of it has exacerbated it. That we see that women's roles aren't successful roles.
Oh, for sure, women's
pushing women. Saying that we should be moving into STEM. Well, why? If you like caring and you want to be a nurse or a doctor or whatever, why do you have to go to STEM to show that you're successful? It's a weird view of the world.
Yeah.
And why don't we pay caring roles more than we do?
Or even pay them something. Yeah.
True.
Well, yeah. No, I do think that it would be a very interesting and different world if all resources were shared equally. I think that would certainly change a whole lot of things. So, look, and often you hear that the key to women's emancipation is through economic stability, and so through building up the economic resources of women is how you improve an entire society. So, we could just start paying people for unpaid labour would be fantastic. So,
well, at least respecting it anyway, and seeing it as, in my opinion, the most dangerous, the most challenging thing that happens, in my opinion, that you can do, activity that you can do, is giving birth to a child. It is, women put their lives in incredible danger because of the way that we, keep our species going, carrying it in our womb for 9 months, and then of course it's got to come out somewhere. That whole process. That's why, and we take it for granted in our country because we have low, but it is a very dangerous thing that we do as women, and yet it is not given the kudos that it should. Anyway.
You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ. That's all we got time for today. And you have been listening to Megaherzzz. We'll be back again next week. And
We will indeed.
Megaherzzz.
Bye.
Megaherzzz.
Megaherzzz.
You're listening to Megaherzzz on 4ZZZ.